There are new numbers out tonight spelling out more clearly than ever how Alzheimer's disease is affecting Americans, and specifically people in California.
Yeah, right now an estimated 6.5 million people in America are living with Alzheimer's, and shockingly that number is expected to double by the year 2050, which isn't that far away. Joining us now to discuss is Claire Day, Chief Program Officer at the local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. Claire, thanks for being with us. These new facts and figures, it's an annual report. This is such a problem for so many families. What is the big picture takeaway, maybe one or two things in your mind after seeing this?
Yeah, thank you for having us. I think just a couple of things. One is that Alzheimer's disease is on the rise. We're an aging nation. And so I think when you think about our population of 65 and over growing, it's estimated that that 65 plus population is about 58 million in 2021 and is expected to grow to almost 88 million by 2050, which means we need to do something today to end Alzheimer's disease for future generations.
Claire, maybe there's no easy answer to this, but I find that shocking, the number doubling perhaps by 2050. Do we have any idea why it's accelerating at what seems to be a frightening rate?
Well, I think it's primarily at this point due to the fact that we are an aging nation. If you think of the baby boom generation and age being the biggest risk factor to developing Alzheimer's and dementia, it makes sense that as our 65 plus population grows, 1 in 9 people over the age of 65 will develop Alzheimer's. And I think that's why we're starting to now worry about this growing number of older adults in the U.S. and what we need to do to sort of mitigate the disease.
There's this term mild cognitive impairment, and a lot of us, I think, walk around the house, forget where we put our keys or our phone or our glasses, and you kind of chalk it up to just that being life, and we're all kind of stressed out. But at what age should people start to really try to diagnose, if you will, this mild cognitive impairment, and why is that important? And then what should people do if they do notice changes in a family member?
It's such a great question. We've learned so much about understanding mild cognitive impairment over the past few years. And what's important to note is that mild cognitive impairment and mild cognitive impairment due to Alzheimer's disease are not part of normal aging. So we're all going to forget why we walked in a room. That's a normal part of aging. The cause for concern is when it really impacts your activities of daily living, when it starts to have an impact on you being able to sort of function and think and remember the way you used to the fact that you can't sort of recall some of those things. And it's always best to go and see your physician and get your memory checked out if you're starting to be concerned about yourself.
Claire, part of that same topic, it says in one of the reports, maybe this was part of the same report, even doctors occasionally are saying, well, it's part of aging. So if they do figure it out sooner and appropriately, is there anything they can do? Can they make things better by realizing it sooner?
Well, there's certainly lots of advantages to early detection and diagnosis. It doesn't just benefit the person who's experiencing the memory loss. Of course, that's helpful because it's important to understand why you're experiencing these challenges, why you're experiencing these cognitive changes. The quickest way to detect that, of course, and feel kind of not good about it, but understand that there's a reason why it's happening. And so that's the first step. It also allows you to think about planning for your future, making decisions about who should be helping you with healthcare decisions, with financial decisions. But I think most importantly, it's also important to then know that there are things that we can do to decrease our risks. And even once diagnosed, there are things we can do to slow the progression a little bit of the disease, to ensure that we are taking care of our heart health as well as our brain health, thinking about those cardiovascular risk factors. And even someone diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment or Alzheimer's disease should be doing those things that have shown to have impact that are good for the brain.
In California, how much of a struggle is it to find people to care for those experiencing Alzheimer's, professionally, but then also, I guess, if you could talk about the burden that family members who are just, free of charge, basically taking care of others, how much of a struggle that is for people from a professional standpoint and just family members.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and especially over the last 2 years, the burden of professional caregivers has certainly grown, and certainly the burden of family caregivers in California. It's estimated that there are the cost that unpaid caregivers provide, the cost of the equation of that care would be somewhere around $18.94 billion. That care is provided by over 1 million unpaid caregivers in the state of California, and over 881 million hours worth of care that if you tried to get that professionally cared for, you wouldn't be able to find workforce, right?
Yeah.
So I think the value that those caregivers provide is so important, and it does come at a cost. As you mentioned, about 59% of family caregivers of people living with Alzheimer's or other dementias related that emotional stress of caregiving was high or very high. 74% of caregivers reported that they're anywhere from somewhat to very concerned about maintaining their own health. And so care for the caregivers is as important as caring for people living with dementia. And it's really important that you recognize that it is not a one-person job, that there are support services out there. There's a way for you to get help and support in the journey.
I see that some of the country's biggest drug makers are now uniting to set standards for their studies and their information. Is that something that's been lacking, Claire? Could that help?
I think it's certainly a step in the right scientific direction when you look at organizations and companies coming together to solve a problem that is as big as Alzheimer's and dementia. It's always a good thing, and really I think we've seen a dramatic increase in Alzheimer's and dementia funding at the National Institute on Health, and all trending in a good direction for us to really see progress. We still need more progress to be made, and that's only going to be done if we all start to work together.
Fair enough, and I know there are resources that the Alzheimer's Association has on your website, which is easy to find, and we always appreciate your time, Claire. That's Claire Day, the Chief Program Officer with the local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. Have a good night.
Thank you.